Hi, welcome back to Archery Advice. We've got the draw length set on our Eliminator HT, and now the next step is to get the peep in, tied in, and the peep height set correct. So I'll show you how to do that real quick, and we'll just step over to the table for it. All right, now we're over at the table. Let's go ahead and get a peep in the bow. And actually we're going to start by figuring out what our peep height is going to be. On a bow, we're looking at peep height is the measurement from the very top of the loop where your nock sits, all the way up to the center of wherever your peep's going to be. Now I don't have a peep in here right now, so I don't have anything to measure off of. A trick I like to do starting on a new bow, if I don't have a peep height measurement to go off of, is I'll tie a little spotter knot right here. And it's just a little simple, just like the first step of tying your shoes, little granny knots here. Just big enough to see with a bright material that sticks out from the string. Just do about 4 of them there. See, that's just enough for me to see. So, I'll cut the tails off. All right, now I've got that set right at 5.5 inches. And I think we're about right for the peep height that I'm looking for. To check that, we'll grab our release, step over to the range, and get your arrow in your bow so you don't dry fire it. And we'll go ahead. What I'm going to do is draw back with my eyes closed and anchor just like I was going to shoot. Now I'm going to open my eyes and I'm looking at that spotter knot. If it's a little bit low, which this one is low, I want to move it up and put it right in the center of my vision. When I draw back, close my eyes, I'm letting the bow set where it naturally wants to set when I'm shooting it. And then when I open my eyes, I should be able to look right through the middle of the peep. That's going to dictate where your peep height should be. So I've got it moved up a little bit. Let's try it one more time. Close my eyes here, get settled in, open it up, and now see that spotter knot is right in the middle of my sight. I've got it right about where I want to put the peep. So we'll go ahead and get the peep in. The Eliminator HT is unique in the sense that you don't have to have a press to do anything on it, really. I can take one wrench with a few turns on either limb. I can completely unstress these strings enough to completely pull the bow apart. All right, so I'm going to keep taking some turns off of this guy in the bottom, and that is the bolt behind the one you normally adjust. So, most bows you will adjust here for your draw weight. On the Eliminator, you adjust the bolt behind it that moves your limb lifter, and it has so much adjustment in it that you can actually completely unstring the bow without a press. I'm going to go ahead and pull off a few turns off the top one. Same nut up here, same bolt. You can really feel when you start getting that tension off of it, it just starts dropping. And now there's no tension on the bolt at all. I can turn it with my fingers. And you can see those strings are loose. And that's exactly what I want to get a peep in the string. So I've got it marked where I want to put my peep with that spotter knot. We'll go ahead and measure. And that's 5 3/4 inches. 5 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and move this now that I know the measurement. And I'll take my peep, which we're going to use a little 3-strand peep. You should be able to find these anywhere. Brownells, Norman Archery, your local archery shop, or even Wal-Mart might have these. And we're going to pop this into the string right there at 5 3/4. And what I want to do on a 3-strand, because I have these 3 little notches here, I want to split the string up into 3 equal bundles and then pop it into those grooves. So I'll let you get a look at that. It's right into those grooves, and that's going to keep the peep in place. Now, carefully, we want to add the tension back to it by reversing that original procedure. So we'll go to that second bolt right here. It's really loose right now. There we go. Add a few on the bottom. Add a few on the top. And now the only thing we need to watch for, and it's not really happening here, is we're looking for a little bit of limb gap. If our limbs start to come out as you pull the weight down, you want to make sure they reseat as you add weight back to the bow. An easy way to do that is set it down on a table with very little tension on it and push down to make sure that those are seated. And if they are seated, you won't hear anything. If they have a little gap, then you'll hear those limbs pop back into the front of the pocket. Those limbs are seated. Let's go ahead and crank her back up to full weight. We'll add a few to the bottom, add a few to the top. So I've maxed them back out, and now at this point, if I was going to reset the weight to a lighter weight, you want to always go back to the top and then take off from the top. So I'm at my max, and if I want to pull 6 pounds off of it, I'll take 2 turns out of each limb. The same bolt that we were just adjusting, I'd pull 2 turns out from the top, and then rule of thumb says that's 3 pounds per turn on either end. But I'm going to shoot this at max, so I want to leave it at max weight. Now what I just did there was, as I took the tension off, this was allowed to bump up into the same groove on the cable slide, and I just wanted to pull it back down to where it belongs. And that'll happen as you unstring a bow. Basically, things are going to get into weird little places. So watch it, pay attention. Let's go ahead and tie the peep in now. For material to do any kind of tying on a string, except for serving, the actual serving parts will take a special material. But things like tying in peeps or tying in cat whiskers, I really like using B50 or Dacron. It's the same thing, and you can usually find that in some old recurve string. So that's what I've got here. So I'm just stealing material out of an old recurve string, and that will work plenty fine. We're going to want about 18 inches, 12 to 18 inches of material, and I'm just going to pull 1 strand out of the string and harvest a little material out of it. We'll do the same knots that we did on that spotter knot. I'll go ahead and cut that off. Now that's off and out of the way. Tying the peep in, I'm going to start with the bottom knot. I'm going to take that little 18-inch piece of B50, go underneath the string, come up and cross, just like that. So I've crossed in the middle, and then I'm going to do a little, let's see if we can get in there, just a little granny knot here, and then pull it tight. All right, that's the first knot. We need to do 9 of these. So I started on the top, or I started on the bottom. I want to start again on the bottom. I'm going to cross these strands again, come in under, over, and do the same knot again. And then we'll just speed it up a little bit. That's 2, under and over, and cross. That's 3, under, over, cross, 4. And what I'm doing is I'm putting a little bit of tension. So I'm snugging these knots up, but I'm not pulling as hard as I can. If you're pulling to the point where the B50 is actually breaking, it's 50-pound test cord. If you're breaking it, you're pulling too hard. It doesn't need to be that tight. I've got 9 in a row, so we've got a good knot on the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the tails off. And then you'll need a little lighter. You really want to be careful here. Try not to set your bow on fire. We're going to come at the tail end of this knot, and when I cut it, it frayed out, so it's going to burn well. And put a little bit of fire right onto it, a little bit more. And what B50 does when you burn it is it melts. It turns into more of a glue than an actual material at that point, like a string. And it melts into those knots and and glues the end of the knot down. So I don't have to worry about tying any fancy end knots or anything like that. I can just burn that end down and then rub it over onto the knots, and it locks it down for me. We'll go ahead and do that again on the top side of the Peep. Now we'll do the same thing on the top side. The top knock, or the top knot, is the most important one because that's the direction the Peep actually wants to move naturally. As you shoot, it's going to want to sneak up the string instead of trying to go down. So if you're going to tie one a little bit tighter, tie the top one just a hair tighter. 9 in a row will hold just about anything. And now we've got our 9 knots on top. About a 1/4 inch of material on the top to burn back. So that's just going to melt into glue. There we go. Burn it back. All right, now let's check that Peep height. See how close I got it. We're at 5.5. Uh-oh, need to move it. With these knots tied correctly, you should be able to grab a hold of them and with a little bit of force push them up or down or whatever direction they need to go. So I just push that knot up. I can push my Peep right up about a 1/4 inch, and then I'll push the bottom knot up to keep it nice and tight. And I'm looking for about a 1/2 inch gap, somewhere around there on either side of the Peep, just to make sure that I've got enough tension on those strands holding the Peep in place that when I shoot, it doesn't try to pop out and go with the arrow. We've got our Peep set, our Peep height set correctly. We're really ready to start shooting almost.